Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech number 53, looking at the top 10 tips for trading. As some of you guys know, I love to trade. Trading is something that I do all the time. Trading is a mini game in and of itself. You have to think of individual cards somewhat like stock prices that will jump up, jump down, move around. They're highly variable and volatile for some, and others are very stable and predictable. I've divided these tips into two different areas. The first five are for individuals who've been playing less than 6 months to a year. These are what I call new trader tips. These are things to make sure that you don't lose your shirt while trading. The first bonus tip that I have, though, is that if you don't like a trade, feel free to walk away. People will do some ridiculous psychological things, such as pull cards out of your binder, pull cards out of their binder, try to talk to you, get you invested in a trade. And if it's not feeling right to you, the cards are not going to disappear. It's not like this is the only chance you'll ever get to trade for those things. Walk away, go look up the prices, come back another day and do the trade. If it doesn't feel right to you, you're probably right. There's something going wrong with the trade. So the first kind of rule of thumb that I really recommend for new traders is only trade lands for lands. Now, this seems a little bit odd that each card would have a value and those values should be relative, but lands hold their values much better than other cards, and lands are needed in every deck. So especially dual lands. Dual lands have consistently gone up over time. Shock lands, although they're on their way down because they're heavy printed right now, but they will eventually work their way back up. Fetch lands, same thing, they're on their way back. So if you are unsure about a trade and somebody is looking for some of your lands for some cards that you're getting from them that you don't know how they're going to work, I would say just hold on to the lands, tell them that you like to only trade lands for lands, and try to work a different deal. Number two is give $1 or take $1 in trades and be honest about it. Now, I fill my binder with some $1 cards. The Zendikar lands are currently the $1 cards of choice because they're basically like free cash. You can throw one in at the end of a deal if somebody is skeptical. If you can get one from somebody, it works really, really well. But if somebody is ahead of me by $1, I'm happy to just say, point it out. It looks like you're about $1 ahead, but I know you'll get me next time. That's great. And don't worry about that area of variance that's 10 or even as much as 15% value in a small trade. If you guys are off by $1, when you give someone a good deal and they know that they came out slightly ahead, psychologically they end up giving you a better deal next time, and they're more likely to refer their friends or other people to you. So don't worry about the difference if it's within $1. Have some little filler cards, though, that make it really easy for making up that difference. You don't want a deal to go bad because you're $1 short and somebody is really mising. Number 8 tip here is trade away standard cards when they are hot. Standard is the driving force behind the value of most new cards. And when a card gets used heavily in a standard deck, that's the time to get rid of it. It's never going to be higher than when it's hot in standard. Dark Slick Shores was at $20 last year and is down to about 2 to 5, depending on where you see it. Solemn Simulacrum was also up around 10 or 12 for a little while there and is down to 3 when it cycled out. Standard is the most variable, and this is where I see new players losing their shirt because they hoard hot standard cards and then are shocked when they drop to nothing when they cycle out. Number 7 here, this is a little more complicated. Maybe I should have put this in the advanced tips, but I think that new players can actually get this. Know your formats. Thragtusk, staple and standard, not playable in other formats. You've got to trade him for cards from other formats that are going to stick around for a while. The other 3 formats that are here are what are known as eternal formats. The cards in them do not rotate out, and you got a good card in them, they continually slowly go up in price. So Rite of Replication was $1 about a year ago. Now it's about $3 to $4. If you can trade standard cards for cards in Commander, in Legacy, in Modern, even if you give some value, you're going to come out ahead in the long run. Also, try to trade for the most valuable of those older formats. So I'm happy to trade EDH actually for pretty much anything, including some standard stuff if I can move it pretty quickly. Modern, I will only trade for Legacy, and Legacy I will almost never trade. Now, in a few years, if Legacy stops getting as popular as it is, but it's the best competitive format out there, I may change the way I evaluate this. Also, try to figure out what type of a player is. If it's an EDH player, grab their standard cards. They won't care. They'll give you a discount on them. If you're dealing with a legacy player, they could care less about standard cards. Pick up their standard cards, give them something. In legacy, though, you'll often get a value plus because they don't value those other formats. If you're familiar with all the formats, you get a distinct advantage. Also, know the cards that breach across all those formats as valuable. Cavern of Souls is a great example. It can be played in EDH, in Standard, in Modern, and I even argue that it's a powerhouse in Legacy. Number 6. This is an interesting one. To make sure you don't lose your shirt, as a new trader, use a price guide. I'm recommending tcgplayer.com right here because it is one of the most consistent price guides out there. It prices little things, small cards under $1, a little bit lower than anybody else, and your higher cards also tend to be a little bit lower, but you're not going to lose your shirt by giving up a $75 card for $3 if you check prices on something like TCG Player. Now let's move on to the pro tips. These are the fun ones. Never use a price guide. Now I know I told you to just use a price guide, but once you really know what you're doing, price guides can be heavily manipulated. Let's look at Chains of Mephistopheles here. So Chains of Mephistopheles on the Card Kingdom site a few days ago was $120 to $80. 120 for the near mint, which seems like a decent price until you jump over to TCG Player, where only one is available, and it's 150. And then on eBay, you notice that 3 or 4 of them are at about 174. So now you've got 3 vastly different prices from 3 different price guides, because somewhat this is an extreme example in a rare card that's difficult to get a hold of. But one of those prices happens to be out of date because they only update their prices when there's restock. Another one has a small sample size, and the third one only seems to have some speculation copies. So be aware of a card like this, whether it's going up or whether it's going down, and value it relative to what you think it's going to be at in a few months from now. Another example of why not to use a price guide is Sunday nights and Monday mornings, they're always off by 30 to 40%. The price of cards is driven by Pro Tours, Pro Tour qualifiers, and Star Cities Open Series in both Legacy and in Standard. If you follow these tournaments, you will see people who Monday morning they're asking to trade for the cards that just won, because the price guides online have not been updated. If you are relying on price guides, you are going to get fleeced by people that have more knowledge over what's being played and what's winning. Number 4 here is a really important psychological one, which is ask people what they're looking for at the beginning of the trade. It's always better to be in the position of you helping someone else than someone trying to accommodate you. People are much more helpful to you and willing to give you a better deal if you're getting them something they need. It also lets you kind of scope the trades. So if you are dealing specifically for $3 or $4 EDH cards, there's no point in bringing out a ridiculously priced Mox and talking about that in the deal. If that's all they want, stay with the smaller cards. But if they're looking for something large, then you know how to work the deal and what type of a focus you're going to be using there. So the takeaway in this one is you always want to be helping people, and your trades will go over better. Number 3, keep a wish list. Now, some people say that this should be private, that you shouldn't tell anybody what your wish list is. My wish list is down there at the bottom. It has all the cards that I really want for decks or that I believe are also going up in value that I would love to have extra copies of. I make it publicly available on the web. Anybody can actually go to the URL. I'll put the URL down in the bottom description, and you can see which cards I believe are going to be going up, because I think that knowledge is more useful if you share it with other people. If I didn't make this available, there are several times when people have said, oh, I saw this on your wish list, I've got some extras, I can give you a good deal on them. I would not be making the trades. I'm very clear. The cards on my wish list are cards that are either personally valuable to me, which there's a few on there, such as Beta Earthbinds, or they are cards that I want to complete playsets of that I believe are moving up current. Also, your list should include all different types of cards. You should have $1 cards on there, $3 cards on there, $5 cards on there, $10 cards on there, $50 cards on there, $100 cards on there, so that if somebody goes through your binder and they find some cards in one of those different areas, you can automatically say, hey, I'm looking for A, B, C, and D, and then you're able to deal with them in that same kind of price structure. Number two, this is a tough one for a lot of people. They get psychological connections onto cards. Everything is for trade. I would say everything except the cards that are sitting in your tournament deck that you're in the middle of a tournament playing should always be for trade. Yes, there are some things that you may have some emotional attachment to, or that would be tough for you to trade, or it's your last 4 death rates and you believe death rates are going up. If that's the case, then tell people, hey, death rate's at 12 currently. I think he's going to be a $20 card in a year. If I'm going to get rid of him, I need to get $18 to $20 out of it. That way, you're upfront, you're honest, but if somebody really wants them, they'll give you that premium, and you've just made a great trade, especially if you can go back and pick them up for $12 or $13 or $14 right away. If you don't have them for trade, when other people want them, you'll end up holding on to them until they've lost some value. The number one tip that I have here is pretty simple. It's don't feel bad about asking people respectfully for a particular trade. If you see something in somebody's binder that you think, oh, it's outside my range, or no, they would never go for that deal, just ask. Be honest, be upfront with them. I'm not saying try to scam anybody, but you would be surprised at the number of times that somebody says, hey, yeah, I can make that happen. Especially if you already went through tip number 4, which was figure out what they're looking for. Because if there's something that other people really want, that they need for a deck, and then you find something you really want, even if you think it's outside your range, they'll often work with you on it. They'll pick up some smaller cards to make up the difference, or they'll make it happen. I've had this happen recently with both a Mana Drain and a Ravages of War, cards that I did not think I was going to get for the particular cards the other person had on the other side of the deal, but we were able to make something work because I asked. So now on to some bonus tips. If you want to get really good at trading, learn some psychology. I mentioned this in an earlier video. Divide your collection into different types because the value of a card is relative to the cards that are next to it. You got a $5 card in amongst a bunch of $1 cards, it looks beautiful. You got a $5 card in amongst a bunch of $10 cards, it looks terrible. So divide out your collection and only provide people access to the part that they are going to need to complete a trade with you. Also, it's great to give people commons, uncommons, small things that they need. Right before a tournament, somebody needs a 50-cent uncommon, just give it to them and say, hey, let's work something out later on something else that I need. This is free. Yeah, it's not really free. It has this psychological connection that they then value you as somebody who cares about them and they're willing to give you a good deal. But it starts this reciprocal trend back and forth. And if you can use the basics of psychology and how to treat people with respect, you will get better trades over the long term. By being fair and upfront in trades, it will point out to other people that you're a good trader in the community, and then you'll get references, and you'll get people coming to you for trades directly, which is always the position you want to be in. Thanks. This has been Brian Rowe with Top 10 Trading Tips for Mythic MTG Tech. Also, if you've got any ideas for upcoming videos, please feel free to post them in the comment section. I'm looking for new ideas to try some different types of videos out. Also, Pack Cracking is happening later this week. Super excited about that.
Oh, it's not fair! It's not fair! It's not fair!
You say that so often.
I think I'm getting smarter. It's a piece of cake!
That's right. It's not fair.